the real math behind everything in the world is really just, is your population growing versus your, like, is your tax cattle growing, right? If there's more bodies, then you can borrow more money, and then because there's more people in the future, they can pay off. It's a Ponzi. Everything's a Ponzi. And what a good Ponzi is, like, just basically supply and demand versus actually like a oh my god, this is really just dog shit, right? But everything is a Ponzi. Your life will end. Your life's a Ponzi. You won't last forever. You know, if you have, like, Apple, if no one buys iPhones, Apple goes under. No one buys anything from Apple, it's gone. No one buys Disney, it's gone. That's what happens. No matter how much money they made. So it's all about demand, basically. So countries around the world, whether there are people like it or not, the governments, and really it's the bankers and a lot of the people in the finance part of it, are basically telling we need to allow immigration, even if it's illegal immigration, because these people have kids and they will stave off our countries evaporating effectively. And basically the game right now is, how many of our can we keep our country from evaporating more than the next country? Because it's all, at the end of the day, it's all a comparison game. How is my country doing next to the next country? If I can retain 80% of my population versus this guy who loses 80, I'm winning actually in the future. They've already lost already. There's no way they're going to get the replacement. So it's really just a game of, like, who can evaporate less over time is the big game, you know? So, I mean, literally Japan's over there saying, like, Japan's giving breeding licenses to weebs right now. Like,
like Japan's probably the best at robotics, I would say. Like, if you're going to go to a legit industry, because they're losing from 130 in 2015, let's say, to 90 million by 2040. That's 40 million people out of 130. So that'd be like America losing about 80 million people, because America's about twice as large in terms of population. So that's going to force you to actually create a new industry. So like robotics is actually the thing there that is actually like just taking off like crazy. And it's like automation basically, right? So like McDonald's is even getting into the metaverse now. You know, like everybody knows like this virtual, is there going to be some sort of interesting mix, right? It's like you got the Terminator Skynet mix. You got the Android, actual robot mix. You got the AI, software that's, like the Joaquin Phoenix movie Companion, whatever. You got like all these different types of digital thing replacing people for different functions, right?
Right.
It's just going to be really, like you said, it's going to be like a different extreme for each country, depending on like their demographics. Yeah.
And the thing for Japan is basically that they have operated in a way where they have a lot of soft, what soft power is? When countries exude soft power, it's basically that their culture, so a way for them to be viewed as larger than they actually are, as well as it makes it hard for countries to attack them, is to exude soft power. So this is exporting culture, right? So anime, and like this is actually,
America's been the best at that with Hollywood. Like that's the only reason why there's so many terrorists that are like, I hate these motherfuckers, but they made that fucking Top Gun movie, so maybe I won't bomb them tonight.
Right? Yeah, Top Gun was a great movie. Top Gun was a great movie. You guys, it's better than the first movie. People say haram to that, but like, bros, like it's not even comparable. I rewatched the first Top Gun. Oh my god, bros, it was trash. Like there's barely any planes in it. Like you could almost say like Tom Cruise is like. Anyway, I'm not going to go into it, but like, there's like a whole conspiracy theory on Tom Cruise is actually like gay in the movie, and he was like wasn't sure if he was gay or straight or whatever.
Hey, as long as he makes more money,
right? And the whole thing was pushed out by Quentin Tarantino actually, because he's one of the guys that said it. Like,
well, he's just what do you call it? I would say Quentin Tarantino is like the what do you call it? What's that guy's name? The Freud of movie psychology.
yeah. Top Cook. But the big thing with Japan is basically that they were the first ones through the door. So Japan's always been like, obviously, like, I mean, once they got past that whole period and stuff where basically the new king took over, and then they just hyper modernized and they became the leading power in Asia. Then from there, after World War II, the United States rebuilt them and then put a lot of money into them, and then they invested a lot into exports and technology. And did extremely well and basically topped out pretty much late 80s and kind of went sideways since then. But they were the first country.
Choice.
Oh yes, by choice. But I'm just saying, like, they were the first major country to. They were the first to go. They're the first modern country that had the population problem. So they're the. It's kind of this whole thing. It's like either you cheat, you be smarter, or you're first. And it's basically Japan was first in terms of like.
And you sell out.
Yeah.
Because like they sold out to the foreign powers in the 90s when it came to money, right? Like that's why the what was his name? Richard Werner, the guy who made the documentary Princes of the Yen.
Right.
Like he described this the best for how Japan did it, right? Like just they basically cut their own economy to become part of the perpetual global elite. Like I know that, like if I say that, it's like, oh, it sounds like Alex Jones bullshit or whatever. Like it's like one of these things where it's like, yeah, I guess I could phrase it differently, but generally speaking, they sold off a lot of real estate within their own country to foreigners, which even before the 1990s was like still, like if you guys have seen the show Shogun at all or whatever, it's like pretty much haram by Japanese standards. You sell real estate to foreigners, oh my god, it's like it's like the worst sacrilege thing you can do. But they did that hand over fist in the 90s to basically screw over their own economy. Why? Not because the economy was going bad, but because they wanted to stay part of the Bank of International Settlements. And like the crazy thing is once you realize that and you look at, I would say if you watch Richard Werner's video from summer of 2020, it was like June or July of 2020 on Real Vision. One of the best videos I think I've seen in the last 5 years, just about economics and stuff like that. Cause like he just breaks down the central banks of the world and just like, it's all an intertwined thing now. Like we're talking about, all these countries are starting to reduce interest rates before the United States. That's going to put pressure on the United States. Well, the United States already had them doing that as well, because if they didn't do that already, right, some of their currencies would be too strong against the dollar too. So it's like this interesting little ballerina balancing act that all these countries have going on with each other, And then when you start getting these countries breaking from the G20 or the G7 or, the groups that are made like the Saudis are now, then that's where it gets interesting.
Yep. So, so that's where it gets interesting and stuff. So it's a very complicated issue and stuff, but more or less like there's the money side, and then there's kind of like the social and demographic side as well and stuff like that. So there's a lot of the geopolitics.
It's all intertwined. I mean, it's a complex system.
And true, and it's also really hard. It's harder for Japan to actually because it's an island. It is a little bit harder for it to. It's harder for it to actually have a ton of immigration. You still can have it, but it has to be more of a really focused on thing, right?
Well,
basically, they just want wealthy. I mean, if you're gonna have immigrants, you basically want to have affluent immigrants. Is what you want to have.
And they got plenty of space. It's more of a matter of because you want to put them in a place that will make money, right? You don't want to just have them come over, right, and take up space. Like, because the only place in Japan that's making money is Tokyo and Osaka. And like, you have a country of 20 million as it is now, and 40 million are in Tokyo metropolitan. Like, a foreigner going out into, Yokosuka or somewhere in the countryside or wherever is not going to make a huge difference. So it's interesting kind of how how it all kind of blends together, because like a lot of countries now are also very like America's getting less like this, and I think that's why the COVID thing actually was like, I mean, whatever conspiracy you want to get into is a little pre-planned in terms of, hey, let's like get the world a little bit more digital here, so that way these cities can be a little bit less important in terms of like a lot of people moving to New York, no problem, right? We can just have them working remote and stuff like that. So it kind of makes that physical location a little less important for a lot of countries. Like that's a kind of a trend that's just, started in the last few years.